Hello and welcome. I thought I would run our first rebroadcast of a special episode of the Unique CPA podcast with a unique host in Mr. Randy Crabtree, who's an upcoming guest on our podcast, and I am a guest on his. And if you enjoyed this episode, please check out the Unique CPA podcast on your local podcast provider, and hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome. We are all the sons and daughters of CPAs. Join us as we question the current state of the accounting and tax industry with the next generation of professionals leading this space. We are all the change agents in an industry fraught with money and inertia. Let's begin the Unique CPA podcast. Cheers.
Hello, and welcome to the Unique CPA. I'm your host, Randy Crabtree. The goal of our show is to keep you at the forefront of the changing face of public accounting by having conversations with fascinating leaders and bringing you their stories, insights, and advice. The Unique CPA podcast is brought to you by Trimerit, the specialty tax professionals. Today, our guest is Scott Scarano. Scott is president of Padgett Business Services in North Carolina, and he is founder and co-host with, it seems like, very many different co-hosts of the podcast, Sons of CPAs. Scott, welcome to our podcast, The Unique CPA.
Oh, I'm excited to be on.
I'm excited to have you.
How's it going, Randy?
Oh, I'm doing great. You?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm great.
And where are you sitting today? You're in North Carolina, right?
Raleigh, North Carolina, in my basement.
In your basement.
Not my new normal recording room, as we said, but this is my office. And I have a clear schedule after this. So
we're going hours excited. Then. We're going hours. This may be an all-day event.
Yeah. A marathon. Yeah. Well, I'm used to it though. I mean, on Monday I think I recorded for 2 or 3 hours, different guests and different specials. So,
well, your podcast, I've noticed you do tend to have some lengthy ones, right? I mean, I think I saw that John Garrett was on. It looked like it was close to an hour. Is that normal?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's normal in the podcast world, but since we started recording, we always just blocked off an hour to record. And when I'm editing, I don't know what to take out.
Right.
Like sometimes we'll record for over an hour and I try to trim it down to an hour. That's what happened with John's. It was like an hour and 20 minutes. I trimmed it down to try to be in the 50-minute range somewhere. Got to fit the ads in there too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, usually 2 minutes for 2 ads. So 4 minutes of ads. So we try to keep about an hour on the regular episodes. And then I try to do my specials during the week down to in the 20-minute range somewhere.
Yeah, I did notice that. We're just going to go off topic already. But I did notice you have quite a few. I mean, we're once every other week, and it looked like you were multiple times per week. How often do you release episodes?
Oof. So Sunday is Sun's Day, right? That's the guest. We usually a guest episode, a regular episode schedule on that cadence. And then somewhat during the week, maybe Wednesdays, sometimes Thursdays, I'll do a special. Right now, we're currently doing a series with Nicole McKenzie, and I call her Nix because she spells her name with an N-I-K.
Okay.
O-L-E. So I call her Nix. We call it Nix Tips, and we do a word that starts with the letter P as it relates to running our firms. So we've got a series of P letters. I don't know how this came up, but it's cool. It's
so
fun.
Just P letters. This is just random. I mean, they're
processes, profitability, pricing, podcasts, payroll, professionalism, partners. It goes on. I think we've done like 12 of them so far. I don't know how many I've released.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. See, it's unique. That's why you're on the Unique CPA here.
Yeah, I love your name. I love the name of this.
I honestly don't remember how we got that, other than I didn't want, I don't want to say anything. I'm going to use somebody else's podcast name and make fun of us. So I just didn't want anything that was just generic. Like,
sure,
let's talk accounting. Yeah.
And it's, I just realized this 2 days ago that the word unique and unicorn are almost the same word. So I assume that a unicorn is a unique horse and you're a unique CPA.
There you go. I don't have any horns, but that's it. I do feel I'm a unique CPA. I've done quite a few things in the industry, and so maybe that's where we got it. I think someone else came up with it though, and I said, "Yeah, that's a great idea." No, it just came to me. I said, "Yeah, that sounds okay," and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? That is a good name." So I'm glad we did it. All right, enough about me.
Well, yeah,
this is all about you today. But I'll make it about me too. What the heck?
That's how we always do. That's what I always like. Ackerman always, like my one co-host always says, it's not about me, but honestly, and it is about you too, because you're the co-host, you're the host of this. So it's about you. It's about your guest, and as it relates to running. I mean, I guess that's kind of what's the tagline of this show. It's the Unique CPA.
Yeah, it'd be good if I knew that, because then I should probably keep the shows based on that. But it's basically, okay, I think I know it. Keeping you at the forefront of the changing face of public accounting by having conversations with interesting leaders and bringing you their stories, insights, and advice.
I love it.
I think that's it. Something like
that right there. Like that's kind of in different words, in your own words. That's almost what ours is. And I almost have ours memorized. I've been doing that for a year now, but that's ours is like, well, I guess you'll have to listen to the Sons of CPAs to know ours, but I say it every episode in the beginning. So.
Do you? See, they recorded mine, so that's why I didn't think I remembered it, and I probably missed part of it. But all right, so let's talk a little bit about, because you and I were talking ahead of time, and it's funny because we'd never met until 2 months ago via just a connection, but then we were talking before the show. We know a lot of the same people, and I think it's partly or maybe fully the podcast world that has done this. But you're in North Carolina, I'm Chicago, although during the winter I'm on the West Coast just to avoid the Chicago winters right now. But I was just looking through the list. I mean, John Garrett, who you just had on the show, Josh Lance, who he has been on the show a couple times. He was on our virtual conference. Kristen Keats, I know real well. Terrell Turner's been on the show. Blake Oliver's on the show. And it's really interesting doing podcasts because you get to meet all these interesting people, and it, they don't have to be in your backyard to do it. So I assume the podcast has increased your world as well.
It's increased my ego, maybe. No, I mean, it has. It's made the world a lot bigger and smaller at the same time. And I know I've said this in the past about Zero. Zero did that for me first.
Okay.
By inviting me to be on their partner advisory council, the XPAC. That's how I met a lot of my core group of people that I kind of pal around with. Like when you mentioned Josh, and all of our connections kind of started at ground zero, no pun intended. And it kind of built up from there. I built a lot of these friendships, and then that's kind of how this podcast started. Even though Ackerman wasn't in my class of XPAC, he was in the class. He graduated before me almost. I call XPAC the high school that we all went to, right? And he graduated before me. I've already graduated. There's some new people in now in the next freshman class, but that's kind of how it all started. And then as I started doing the podcast, I poked my head outside of my own world, out in the real world. I start meeting all of these new people. And then when you bring up these names, it's like, oh yeah, I know him from this, or I know him from this, or I know her from this, I know her from this. And so it's comforting to kind of know that there's a place in this world, and a lot of people kind of have that same watering hole almost. And I don't know what that watering hole is, but I think it's accountancy or accounting or CPA world. That's where we live in, right?
It is. There's an industry connection for sure, and then there's all different aspects within there, that's what I find so interesting. I mean, talking with Josh, and he was a virtual office, well before anybody else, and people had to catch up over the last 2 years, and building a niche practice, and just all the unique stories everybody has. I just have fun.
Deep in my heart, I want to be Josh. Josh is the steak of it all, and I'm just sizzle on all ends. Josh kind of has he's the meat and the potatoes all in one. Like, and I remember a lot of the things that we do at our firm were ideas I got from Josh. And I know Josh got them from other industry. He's got his ear to the streets too, but he's an integrator and visionary all in one, which is amazing. I mean, he wouldn't call himself that, but I call him that.
Yeah, I don't know how many years more he can be on the 40 under 40. I'm guessing he's getting close to not qualified anymore.
He's got about a year and a half left, give or take. He's about my age. So yeah.
So he's getting close, but he and I have a connection other than just the podcast in the accounting world. Is we're both craft beer fans, and
You're also both Chicago.
we are both Chicago, although we have not got together in person yet, even though that was the plan. But Josh will be probably excited to hear is that, and I don't know if you know this or not, but a very sought after beer is being released out here in California where I am right now on Friday. So Pliny the Younger is going to be at my local bar, I'm here for a month in this area, my local, and I'm guessing Josh will be jealous that I get to go taste this beer. I don't know if you're into beer at all.
I'm into weed. If you're in California, I'm in North Carolina. So that is where my head's at. And I'm not high right now, but most of the time I am, especially when I record. And I don't know if it's a downside. I'm starting to smoke less, but I don't drink much.
All right.
And honestly, like that's my envious side is like you're in California. And I would love to start the next Untapped. Have you heard of Untapped?
Oh yeah, I'm on. I don't use it much anymore, but yeah,
I want to call it unfiltered and have it be with weed,
really?
different marijuana products. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get into the app world and try to develop an app. I'm just kidding, but
well, hey, it's probably some money in that. I'm thinking Untapped's probably done all right. I did see that on your LinkedIn profile at the very end that you say Scott is very into weed. I think you said or something like that.
So Scott loves weed, and I didn't even write that. Liz Mason wrote that for me,
right.
And I left it in there. I was like, I think we were doing something sometime last year, and she says, "Do you have a bio?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Do you want to write it for me?" She said, "Yes." And she wrote an awesome bio. So I put it on my LinkedIn and I use that anytime I need a bio. And I left that spot in there.
There you go.
Obviously. Yeah.
Nice. Well, is it legal where you are?
No, it's not.
That's what
so there's that too. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get a knock on my door in a minute, but I mean, it's very discreet these days. It's not like I have flower or anything. It's all these vapor pods that I'll get from other states when I go to Denver, when I go to California, and I'll just bring the pods home. My parents bought me a bunch last time they were in Denver and they drove it back. Huh. Yeah, they brought me Lil Wayne's weed. So I've got Lil Wayne cartridges. He's got his own like proprietary thing going on and Jakua. But yeah, I mean, we don't need to make this podcast about that, but
no,
that is a vertical. That's an industry vertical. You guys are in craft brewery, or Josh is.
Oh yeah.
Liz's big vertical, because she's in a state that it's legal, is cannabis industry. And that's a huge, and me and my operations manager at my firm, we're just waiting for the day that it's legal in North Carolina, because that's a vertical that we will dive into head first. For sure.
It is big. I mean, every CPA firm that I deal with CPA firms around the country, if they're in a state where it's legal, that they have their own division just dealing with that. I did a webinar on that industry a year ago where I was reaching out to everybody I knew in the industry that it deals with that. And there's just so much information out there, and there's so many complications, obviously not being federally legal when it comes to tax standpoint, that I can't even explain it all. But yeah, it's definitely a big business. All right.
Yeah, I think I'll call it token tax services, right? I just made that up. I didn't even think that one through. No.
Look at you. I'm a fly. A little bit of everything. All right. So let's change subjects a little bit. Although I did like the steak and the sizzle because I listened to your first podcast a little bit this morning, and you use that analogy
for Ackerman.
Yeah. Is that what it was? Yeah. He was the steak. You were the sizzle.
Yeah. And I still definitely agree with that one. Yeah, I bring the fun and the entertainment, and he tries to bring the real questions and keep me aligned. So my head's in the clouds, in the cloud accounting, not in the clouds, but yeah.
Well, see, you're the idea man. You come up with token tax right away. You come up with so that's
somebody else has probably come up with that one. I just made that up. I'm sure if you Google it,
I haven't heard it, so I'm sure there is.
Somebody's going to take it now if they're listening to this. Yeah,
you better copyright here. Just say you're copyrighted that right now on the show.
Trademark token
trademark.
Tax,
is that what it is? Yeah. All right, got it. All right, it's yours now.
Try Merit's TM. That's trademarked right there, I'm sure.
I don't know legal stuff.
I'm just saying the initials. I have an affinity for letters.
Trademark. I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
Trademark, try Merit. Yeah.
See, I'm a numbers guy. I don't see letters. I see numbers. When I see trimerit, I just see what number they are.
I see colors. I think in colors,
Right.
and that's like I'm always attracted to the colors. I like how the gradients of blue on yours goes from like darker blue to lighter blue. It's like the night and day kind of thing, contrast.
That was not our original logo. Our original one was just straight bluish purple, and then we got a marketing team, and they switched it to that. So don't know what that means.
Well, it really highlights the T.
Yeah.
In trimerit or tax and all that. Like I can see TAX in the logo itself.
Yeah, the first logo, I think I spent $99 on some online company that said, "Here's my name. Can you make a logo?" And they did.
Oh, you're going to have a lot of money to spend when that ERC money comes in too. I don't know if you've talked about that on the podcast, but
we've done a few podcasts on that.
Big payday soon.
We've done a lot of employee retention credits for sure. And I'm actually I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty proud of the fact that it appears that people consider me a leader in that industry, because there's
really impressive.
There's a lot of misinformation out there on the employee retention credit, and I could get on my soapbox, and we won't do it now, but I can get on my soapbox for a while, where I just see credits that I should really concentrate on, the credits that aren't being taken that should be, because there are tons of businesses that haven't taken advantage that should. But I get so worked up when I see credits that are taken that shouldn't be. It's just like, the company just said, "Hey, you got $5 million in credit. I'll apply for it for you." And I look at the company afterwards, I go, "You didn't have any credit." So I don't know why you're being promised these big dollars, but all right, enough of that.
Sorry, I knew that would shift. Sorry,
you get me going. You get me going on the ERC, and that's a problem. I'll talk all day.
We're talkers too, so that's somebody's gonna have to keep us in line. We're both sizzle, right?
I was gonna say that's why we both do podcasts, and honestly, I'm very fortunate to have. We have a pretty big team, and so I get to just do the talking, whether it's the podcast, whether it's webinars, whether it's in-person presentation. And I'm fortunate lately, I've been writing a lot of articles for different accounting magazines and journals, which has been kind of fun. So I guess there's a meat to that, but a lot of what I do is sizzle too. You're right.
Mm-hmm. No, well, you got to hold down both, because you're the host. You're not a co-host. And I've always done that to myself, made myself I needed to anchor myself with somebody that had some substance too, I think. Because I tend to feel like I'm just a vapor. Like I like to vape, I have the vape pen, and I'm just vapor. I don't have a lot of substance. I'm Vaporware, right? That's what Scott is, the Vaporware.
Well, you got some substance. I've heard some of the conversations you have. You definitely have substance involved there. So, but
give myself any credit though.
But you're the thinker.
Thinker.
You're the thing, right? Is that what you are?
Thinking, token, talking, tax. That's what it should be.
You got all the T's, but
thinking, token, talking.
You got to. If we're going to use letters, you're using the P's already with Nick's. You should be based on the S's maybe for
That's what I got around my neck.
Oh, do you? Oh, Superman.
Well, it's the S for sons, right?
But it looks like Superman.
It is Superman.
Okay.
It's a Superman S. I'm going to get a $sign one so I can have 2 chains. So it's right. There's a rapper. His name is 2 Chainz. That might have went.
I think. Well, yes. I think I may have heard that before. I'm a little older than you, so I may not know everything you know. But
age is a mindset.
I don't feel old.
You don't act old.
Yeah. Well, my legs, with all the hiking we've been doing in California, my legs are feeling old right now.
So check this out, though. When you say the letters, right? There's the P's. You said S's. So we're doing. I did a series on words that start with the letter C. I'm also working on a bunch that start with the letter A. And I want to take these as 20-minute segments and weave them together in one powerful episode. That's a C, a P,
got it,
an A. So you could have communities, perspective, and accountability. And those two don't weave together. But you know what I mean? Like if there's 3 topics that are somewhat interwoven, that's going to be a higher production podcast. I think I'll call that podcast the CPA podcast, maybe.
But that's not that unique.
It's evergreen material.
That's unique,
right?
for sure. Yeah. But the name is. But I understand
exactly. That's the point, right? I want it to be ununique in the name and then unique in the idea, because somebody's got to own that name.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even a CPA. I don't have it tattooed on my arm like Byron does, Byron Patrick. But yeah. Oh, so yeah, he has it tattooed on his arm.
Who is Byron Patrick?
He's with BotKeeper.
Okay, I should know this. See, I don't know all these software packages. I know that you probably deal with
in the
all
clouds.
that. I don't know the cloud stuff. I know some of it, but again,
you're the tax guy.
I'm the
unique CPA.
I'm the tax talker.
Unicorn.
All right. So should we get into any substance here? Should we?
Substance. This is going to be the Vaporware episode.
I'm already wondering what their producers are going to name this podcast, because they come up with the name. So
yeah,
we'll see. If you want to,
I would assume they're going to be token tax, but I don't know. Let's try to come up with a better name.
I think that's probably good. All right. Well, I was going to ask you about Padgett, but I think we might skip that unless
we can talk about Padgett. So Padgett's a franchise nationally, been around for about 55 plus years. I'm a franchisee of Padgett, so my office is a Padgett office. They're redefining who they are as a franchise, I think, and I don't think they're going to shy away from that, but they're not really the same that they were when I started. And that's intentional because the industry has changed. The industry. And that's also why I'm kind of doing this podcast. Like the Sons of CPAs is a metaphor for the next generation, and the next generation of accountants, the next generation of CPAs, the next generation of firms look different than they did before. A lot of things kind of stayed true at the core, even at Padgett. The core of our chart of accounts is never going to change, and the way that we do taxes and certain systems that we have in place through and from Padgett haven't changed over the years, but the makeup and the outside, the dress definitely changed. They've just rebranded, new brand, fresh look. I haven't even rebranded our website, or I still have a closet full of polos that are old Padgett logos that I don't want to get rid of, but I don't even wear polos anymore. I mean, so I got a lot of Padgett branded stuff, like on the other side of this wall, or what you're seeing. I got a big Padgett logo that was on our office. I don't even have an office anymore. Like what we did used to be very localized, and the offerings that Padgett had for franchisees was, here's your local territory. Well,
right.
We have clients all over the country.
Yeah,
we always have. And the way that we did things with Xero was different because they had their own proprietary software that most offices were using when I moved on to Xero. And so, yeah, I mean, so again, I don't want to go too deep into the nuts and bolts of it, but they're kind of redefining. They got some new leadership in with Jeff Phillips and Amanda Aguilar, and they're just changing, and I'm sort of stuck in the middle of that, bridging the gap between the old and new, because I know the old.
Yep.
And I am embodying the new.
Yeah, I was going to say
the way that we operate.
I assume the change is good. The change is needed.
It is. Yeah, change is a good C word.
There you go. You're working on the first episode of the CPA.
I already got one. It's already recorded.
Do you really?
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, cool. All right. Some of the things you just said, let's talk about that, because you're the next generation in public accounting. I think, what's your podcast saying? I think I wrote it down here. Question this current state of accounting and tax industry with the next generation of professionals leading the space. We are all change agents in the industry, fraught with money and inertia. What's all that mean?
What does it mean to you?
It means that the profession should change and is changing, and that some people, the older generation, is probably not keeping up with change, and you're out there to help force change. I don't know the money and inertia part of it.
Yeah, maybe I need to fix that. Maybe I need to change that, right? I'd have growth mindset on my intro.
Yeah.
Money and inertia is like, inertia is you're content, right? People that are in a firm and in a practice that's making money, that's doing well, that's profitable. What's the incentive to change? Why would you want to change?
Right.
What's the motivation to go and get this new software package or do this differently than you're doing it? Because your clients are still paying you, and you're still doing fairly well across the board. A lot of firms that haven't changed and that want to do things the same way, it's because I read something in accounting today, like the same as last year, the Sally method, right? Let's just keep doing it the Sally way.
Yep.
Same as last year. And let's not change anything because there's already too much change going around in the world around us. But the accounting industry is, to a large degree, is very, very behind the times when you compare it to other industries and the other ways of doing business. And I don't know if that's because of the IRS, it's because of the bureaucracies and structures, or is it because of the employees and the firms that don't want to change. So that's the money in the inertia part. Maybe I need to elaborate a little more on that. But.
Okay, it makes sense. And I agree with you on that completely. I think change has to happen. I think I know some larger firms that I'm not too sure they're going to survive just because their partnerships average age is so high. They don't want to change because they're at the end. And it's like, why am I going to do this now? That might be one reason private equity is looking at public accounting. Hey, let's get in now because there is opportunities. It is a cash flowing business. It is, have ability to increase with different offerings now, more technology, whatever it is. But yeah, the change has to happen.
Imminent, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that was the reason why we started the podcast, is to help push things forward and to help move the industry forward. That was our ultimate goal in doing this podcast, was to continue these conversations around the next generation and to keep moving things forward. So
what are some of the pitfalls that firms are sticking to that they need to change that you see, or what are the top 3 or something most needed change in firms?
Oh, I'm all vapor, man. I don't have that substance. I don't have that in my back pocket. I can try to tell you, I think part of it is, everybody has the same conversations, and that have been time, like billing on time. This is low hanging fruit, I guess, if we're going to talk about things that still haven't changed to a large degree. But I think a lot of firms have adopted a growth mindset or on fixed fees and starting to charge some form of fixed fees, starting to restructure the way they think about time. But we started tracking time last year. We never tracked it. And now we track it in a way to measure profitability on clients, to get our pricing right for new clients. And
so are you going backwards?
I think so. So I've, like I said, I don't have a very fixed mindset on anything, and I can be flip-flopped from one day to the next on ideas because we have somebody on the podcast that has a compelling argument toward time. Okay, well, maybe I should track time. Now I can figure out how profitable we are with all of our clients across the board. And we're not tracking it to keep them. I don't micromanage anybody at the firm. I'm very hands off when it comes to that. What I want to know is, are we pricing things right? Or can we be more profitable? How can we tap into our profit margins? And looking at that overhead, when you're a firm that does payroll, taxes, accounting, and everything for your clients, it's kind of hard to figure out where everything's going, where our resources are going. Offhand, my co-host tries to argue that you don't need time for anything. And I was in his corner until we started doing the podcast. More and more, the time conversation continued to come up, and everybody tracks time at their firm.
Yep.
He's one of the only firms in the country that don't track time.
Is that Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do all tax. I don't think you need to track time on tax. I don't care about the time spent on tax. I think it's a lot of the CAS stuff.
Right.
We really got to get a handle on.
But so you're going to do it just to find that you're pricing right, and then
we might stop tracking it. We're really trying to redefine so I'm also rethinking value pricing too at our firm. And I've been doing value pricing for the better part of 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
And I myself can do it. But when I try to scale that out and scale our sales process out, it all exists in my head. There is no clear fixed fee model at our firm because we flipped that upside down. We never track time. We never billed on time, but we had fixed fees for everything. But then when I started value pricing, now it's like this person's paying this, but this person's paying this. We're spending more time on this one and they're paying less.
Right.
And we're much more profitable on this one. And then how does somebody adjust somebody's prices or offer more services to this client? And it doesn't seem very lopsided. So what we're trying to do is rebuild our pricing platform, and there's more P words there, but we're trying to become more profitability with our pricing.
Another one.
Performance. Yeah.
All right, good. You're on a roll.
And create more processes involved in that to become more, so and it's just at Padgett, there's another P. They had a fixed pricing model that they would give everybody, but it was too low. And so I needed to change that. And we shifted the pricing, and we scaled that upward significantly, and realized that clients will definitely pay because they're paying for a relationship.
Right.
And now I just want to figure out what's a profitable price that we can walk away with and have this revenue range, this industry, this price, and so have a better pricing menu or pricing matrix We don't really have that.
No. And are you doing when you did the fixed fees or you're doing the fixed fees, is it a 3-tier or is it just?
Yeah, we're on Practice Ignition, another P. And so Practice Ignition, we have, we've been doing 3 options, but I started following James Ashford and Go Proposal. He believes that you don't need 3 options. Give the person the option that they need and then work down or work wherever from that. And so we started paralleling Go Proposal and Practice. I know I'm doing it on purpose now.
Yeah,
Purpose, right? Yeah. So Go Proposal and Practice Ignition. And we haven't started using Go Proposal yet, but I like the theory. I like the method behind it. A pricing menu and just everything backed by an algorithm that they have buried into the platform. Another P. That algorithm kind of basically dictates you check all the boxes of this client, and this is the price, and then you can tweak different things, frequency, I guess just the different offerings for that client's proposal to really drill in. And then so the options are kind of built into that rather than say, here's the 3 options that we put together based on our call.
Right.
And now let's work within those to figure out what's right for you. It's almost kind of the same thing. It's still kind of offering.
But it's automated or what? So this is a software platform that you can buy and it's going to help you in pricing?
Sage just bought them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Sage just bought Go Proposal. We started paying for it. We're really not using it yet, but we're trying to develop this new pricing system so I can get out of the sales process. That's like the only thing at our firm that I'm still involved in. And I want out.
So then what's your role after that?
I don't know. I got to figure out my purpose. I'm a podcaster now.
PP, Purpose Podcast. All right, I got to stop because now I'm listening for every time you say a P.
Yeah, I'll stop. This wasn't going to be the P episode, but you've given me some inspiration for our next tips.
Nice. All right. So when you were talking that whole thing, I know you recently talked to Ron Baker. Did that help in your whole pricing model thought process?
Absolutely not. No? I don't know. I mean, it did. We had I just didn't want to talk about time with him. I wanted to talk about everything else. We talked about the art of business. We talked about his history. Yep. And I'm just fascinated by Ron. That was the whole goal of the podcast back January of 2021 when we started recording. I was like, one day I want to have Ron Baker on and Mike Michalowicz. And we got Mike coming on in April and we had Ron on a couple of weeks ago or last month. So I'm just gonna put the mic down. I'm done now.
That's it. You can retire now, huh?
No, it's and it was everything that I thought it would be. I haven't started editing the episode, but he stayed on for an extra hour just chatting with us too. And we recorded for an hour and a half. So I don't know what I'm going to do. If I'm going to chop it up into multiple episodes, make a special out of it, or just release it as one. I mean, I love Ron. I love everything he's got about value pricing and his theories, and now the subscription model, because every one of our clients is now paying us monthly for everything that we do for them. Mm-hmm. We don't have I think we have maybe one client left that still pays for their tax returns separately, but almost every other one, maybe 105 clients that are all paying a monthly fee for everything.
Right.
And we're trying to figure out what's the right fee for us to stay profitable. And who really helped on that, we had Jody Grunden on from Summit CPAs. And I think his model is almost perfect.
Oh, that's funny. I just talked to the guys from Summit yesterday.
Andy?
Yeah, Andy and Jamie.
Yeah. So, and Jody or Jamie? I don't even know Jamie.
There's a Jamie as well. There is a Jody, but Jamie is. Yeah. That was actually on their. They have multiple podcasts. I was on one of their podcasts.
Have 3 too. Yeah. So I love what Jody does, and he still does some sales, but the way that he runs the firm is kind of similar. To go back to your question on what I want to do. I mean, if I continue doing that's kind of how I want to run the firm, is the way that he does. I mean, he has time for anything. He hops on a call. I reached out to him on LinkedIn and he's like, here's my calendar, hop on a call whenever. And he's always got this, seems like he's got this very laid back approach to the way he does everything. And the way that he's done his firm is a model, I think, for the industry going forward. I think that is ideally, after everybody that we've talked to, I think they're doing it right.
Yeah. No,
there's no right and wrong way, but I think they're doing it right.
No, I had a great time with them, and actually I'm doing another recording with them next week. So
cool.
Well, now I'll have to throw your name out there.
I said, what's up? Yeah,
exactly. All right. So should we do one more serious question then?
Sure.
All right. So we got into the pricing a little bit with the Padgett. What about just business model from a, because so you part of your whole going back to the podcast, kind of shaking up the industry, thing change has to happen. Just the whole business model of partnership and, there's a divide between maybe the partner level and everybody else and not all communicating, not being on the same page. Do you have any opinion on the whole, should we structure firms differently?
I think Kenji and Matthew at Acuity kind of have it figured out, or they're starting to, the way that they're doing it. And it's almost a reverse. I'm trying to think of like where I want to anchor this. So
I knew you'd have an opinion. So that's nice.
Yeah. I mean, like, so they run it like a corporation and they're running it like a business, but now they've merged with Catching Clouds, and Scott and Patty now have ownership, but they're not operating this like a partnership model yet. And that's kind of how a partnership is, right? Different firms merge and then they add more names to the board, and it's different silos of basically just still operating as different companies. Well, they're trying to create now they've compensated for their shortcomings as Acuity was. They take on Catching Clouds to bring on another industry vertical and also highly structured processes and systems into Acuity, and now to try to make it more tightly woven. And they don't operate like a traditional partner model yet. They have, stake now, and they've created a merger or acquisition, or however you want to, amalgamation, however you want to call it. It's another good A word, actually. Basically, like to create another model of how corporations are typically run outside of the accounting and professional services world. So I like where they're going with it. I think they're a good model to move forward with that, because they have a great approach just on everything that they do, and they know the industry, and they also know where they want to go as a firm. And they're on their way to 11 million now, and they have, over 150 people. I think that's actually kind of just a good way to, again, there's no right and wrong ways. I think the partnership model just doesn't work because there's not one person at the helm. Even if you say you have a managing partner, you still have to answer to everybody. There isn't one person that can make a decision, because it doesn't matter if it's unanimous. It's a decision that has to be made, and no decisions get made. That's the inertia part of not changing, because nobody can agree. Well, it doesn't matter. Just get on board or leave. And most of the time, a decision just has to be made.
Right.
And people are afraid of perfection, and they fear that it's not going to be perfect, or this person's going to be upset with this, or this person might leave. Nobody's going to leave. Overall, if everybody has the same vision and alignment in where they want to go as a firm, the one person making the decisions isn't going to fuck everybody over because they made one decision wrong,
right?
Or they did something that 3 other people don't agree with. Decisions just have to be made, and change has to happen. I think that's my opinion.
Now I feel like I need another serious question, because you can go on them, but I don't have any other serious. I probably do, but
give me a serious question. I could do it.
Actually, I can't even think. I didn't write any down. I was going off. Well, this isn't even a question. It's just that all these people in the industry that I have no idea who they are, and this is more, I think, like software-based companies you're talking about, like this Acuity and all this.
No, there's a firm.
They are. I don't know this.
Pretty much kind of like a CPA firm, but they're not. Like they can't, like, because of state laws and different things, you can't be a CPA firm and have Acuity. There's different states that wouldn't allow that. I mean, but they're basically accounting, tax, payroll, anything that a lot of firms do. Acuity, like an Acuity, I guess sounds like a software company.
That's what I thought.
There's other firms that I could think of, but not traditionally speaking. I think a lot of these firms are kind of budding up. Like you've got High Rock, that's another one that's doing things right. Liz Mason in Arizona. I mentioned her earlier, but like I just have models of people that are doing things differently, right? And that's the change. I think some firms are definitely have the money and the backing to change the way they do things and model off of the new, whatever's best practices. And firms are going to adapt, and they will. I have no doubt that every big firm will make it through on the other side and be doing things all the right ways and continue to scale up and continue to grow. But some may not make it. Some may eventually just, kind of stay at odds with each other, and the partners don't really agree on anything, and they kind of just stay still and they get left behind.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm fortunate. I know a lot of firms in the industry. I know probably the bigger firms. That's just our base, and it's funny because you can see the ones that you know are going to thrive, that are doing things different, that are not afraid to change, like you're suggesting, and then there's other very large successful firms that each partner is its own business, and it's just we're not all on the same page, and I just don't know how they survive in the long run that
they're
way.
very successful, and they're making a lot of money, and there's no reason that they should change now because nobody's leaving them except employees. I mean, I think to a large degree, if they continue the way that they are treating their employees and just working them to the bone and not really focusing on their people as much, that's probably where they're going to suffer, because the market for CPAs and for talent is, I don't know what you want to call it, just shrinking or
the market's shrinking. But I think what's happened is that there's not a lot of barriers anymore either. I mean, you can live anywhere. I mean, like we talked about, you do work around the country. Josh's employees, Josh Lance, are everywhere. So if you find that place like Josh or you or somewhere that, are going to treat you right.
Acuity. They don't even have an office.
Okay. Yeah. And you're going to attract the people that everybody else wants because you give more flexibility. You give more fun. We give more freedom, whatever it is. And if you're stuck in this big firm that are working you to death, why am I going to stay there?
It's like Reconciled. Michael Lee, his firm they're almost at 100 people. Maybe they already are. And they've always been remote. They've never had an office. They never had a structure like that. And so that was their value add. During COVID, it was like, okay, well, we're doing the same as everybody else has to do now. But now on the other side of it, people are going back to the offices, and these remote firms tend to be more attractive for the younger base of talent. And so everybody has a hard time hiring right now. I mean, I could be very empathetic to that situation. It's kind of why I'm hampering our growth, because I don't want to have to go back out and hire more. I mean, I think we can kind of deal with what we have internally. Also, I'm just not that focused with the firm as much as I should be. But
you're an open book too. That's for sure.
It's just, I don't have any secrets. I'll talk about it.
All right. All right. Well, everybody.
I don't know everybody, because when you start talking about traditional firms, I don't even know the names of the top 4 firms. I honestly think it's PwC and EY, and I don't even know the Deloitte maybe.
Deloitte.
I don't know much about
KPMG. All right, we got them all.
There you go, KPMG. Right. And I couldn't tell you what the acronyms are. Price Waterhouse Cooper, maybe PwC, but I don't know much about that world. That's a world that I've kind of just never really dipped my head into. I think that's a whole nother exploration of people that I'd like to meet, is who's running these big firms. I would like to have them on my podcast and see what they're doing differently.
I don't know. I probably had 4 or 5 of the top 100 firm managing partners on the podcast, I'm guessing.
You'll have to introduce me.
Yeah, there's some really, really interesting people out there. And those are the ones.
That's my next step, is to see, traditionally speaking, what these firms are doing to differentiate themselves for the market, to continue to stay relevant, because I think they will.
Yep.
And I think what they're doing is probably real interesting too.
Yep. I mean, the people Richard Coltman from Aprio, I think he's doing a great job. John Sensiba from Sensiba San Filippo.
So did Richard change his middle name? That was kind of my thing with the
Acuity. You know this story, huh?
Because North Carolina, because of my state.
Yep.
And so
yes, it is.
And that's another one I would love to have Richard on, because I know that story very well, and I admire that. I think
I'm just amazed how many people know the story, because I knew about it like right when it happened. He said, "Don't tell anybody," and now I talk to people, and everybody knows this story. So it's funny. I think that's the second time it's come up on this podcast in the last couple of weeks.
I love it. Yeah.
But he does interesting stuff.
I was just thinking about that, because Bruce was supposed to be on our podcast.
Bruce Phillips.
He's a big change agent. Yeah, he's an OG. Like he was. Yeah. Bruce Phillips. Blake sold his firm to Bruce. Basically, and then before he became Aprio.
Yeah, I didn't know what the whole connection was, but I knew Blake Oliver had a connection with Bruce Phillips, and then Bruce Phillips merged in with Aprio, and now it's Aprio Cloud, and they may have changed the name again. I'm not sure.
And our outsourced team is the same one they use. A Double Rule turned into the back room, and that's because they knew Zero and they had a process. So our outsourced team has kind of connected to that as well.
All right. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up. So maybe this is your role going forward as just podcast host, podcast guest. You're just going to need a lot more sponsors probably to make that a career.
I'm going to need some sponsors. Yeah, I got to get a new chain. That's 10% of our budget line item is my next chain.
Chain, like necklace chain, or what are you talking about?
Oh yeah, diamonds chain.
There
I want to get one that's a dollar sign. Like, so for it's my initials, right? The Superman.
Oh, that's
it. SS. Yeah.
See, I didn't even make sense to me when you said you wanted another S. I didn't understand why. Now I get it. It's not a number. Right. It's a letter. That's right. So my wife's an editor. So she, she's got the
2 chains.
She's got there you go. She's got the letter side of thing. I got the number side of thing, and we work well together there. But
I just have the toddler side of things. I noticed this in my daughter, in my youngest. So I got 3 kids, and my oldest is 14, and I didn't see it as much because I was never around. I was always working.
Yeah.
Like 80, 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
And now that I am working at home, I can see in my youngest the way she is with her sorting things, taking her pile of toys and moving them around and like sorting the colors. And I just see that that's how I am now as an adult. Like I like the organization. That's my accountant side of me, and I want things to be organized. I want them to be, kind of just fitting in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always a right answer to things. And I like that. I'm very much.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Their place. I know you wouldn't have guessed it, but that's like deep within me, my subconscious. It matters. Like the books behind me are sorted by color. And I
see that now. Wow. That's crazy.
I don't like it right now because I need to fix that. There's some colors that need to be moved around. And
is this an OCD thing?
I was like OCD. So I was born. I don't have CPA behind my name, but I have a lot of letters. I was born with OCD,
really,
ADHD. Yeah. So all of my credentials were just handed to me down genetically. They weren't. I didn't have to take a test for that.
But this is something that I don't think kids should be labeled with that kind of stuff because then they think that is them. I don't know if you have an opinion.
As a kid.
Okay.
I labeled myself later. Okay. It was like my brother was the one who got the labels. And I think it hurt him down the line because that was like always his handicap. Nobody ever gave me a handicap because I did well in school. Like I ultimately, I did well, and then I got kicked out of college. So then I had to figure out my way back into this whole world. But yeah, I mean, I was like, I figured it out later. Definitely I have attention deficit and
so that one I would have guessed. So
yeah, but mix that with the OCD and it's a different side of the spectrum, right? Like
I'm sure it's everywhere.
It's hard to deal with me sometimes.
Well, I was labeled as the shy kid growing up, and I don't think that really fits. I just didn't want to say anything unless it was important. And now I don't care if it's important or not. I'll say it. So
I think it served you well though, because now you do have some substance, and I like, where you went with this conversation. And I think that you're introverted extrovert, maybe, if that's how.
Yeah, probably.
See, I've met a lot of people that call themselves that, and Josh is very much like that too. I use him as an example because Josh, but it's like, I think naturally you tend to be able to move around and have different conversations with people because you're an observer too, maybe.
Yeah. I'll take that. I'm not sure if it's true, but I'll take it. So. All right. Well, this has been great for me. A couple of things before we wrap up. One, anything else you want to add?
Added enough. We're on. Do you only record for like a half hour for most of these?
Well, 25 minutes is the goal.
This is going to be a double episode, or they're going to have to really edit it down.
Well, they'll edit out your part of it. Just leave me in is probably what we'll do.
Okay.
So
that'll sound.
So I'll be asking.
Maybe, yeah. You'll have some mic bleeds. Like I've probably interrupted you a few times.
Well, I've done the same. Yeah. But we have 2 tracks, so I think they just take out those interruptions. Yeah. Cool. So I'm pretty sure that's what they do. I honestly don't listen to the shows after they're recorded, but I think if I talk over you, they probably edit my portion out.
So I listen to mine too much because I got to edit it. I spend like 5 hours editing, and then I'll listen to it again as a listener after I've released it. I learned stuff from it sometimes.
No, and I should do that. I have to listen to one I recorded last week just because I know there's some things I have to edit out, and I have to tell them what to edit. And so they're waiting for me to go listen to it and tell them, okay, at this minute mark.
Did you say something wrong, or did you say something you don't want to repeat?
It wasn't me. It was the guest that I'm not sure. He'll say it's fine. I'm not sure if I put it past a legal team, they would want it out there. So
that's why we don't have a legal team on mine. I'll just release everything.
We have about 6 lawyers that are,
you have
of
to,
the
as
company.
big as your firm is. Yeah. And Tri-Merit, you're representing Tri-Merit with this too. So.
Right. In fact, one of our partners is an attorney. That's the thing with Tri-Merit. We're not all CPAs. In fact, for the longest time, I was the only CPA. Now we probably have 4 or 5 CPAs, I'm guessing. Probably got 5 or 6 attorneys, tons of engineers.
You're on your way to be that. After this check gets cashed for the ERC, you're probably in the top 100 for damn sure, right? Like, have you ever figured that out or looked at that?
No, we wouldn't be top 100 this year. We'll probably increase from last year, which was a huge increase from 2 years ago. And then we'll see what happens. I'm kind of like you. I'm getting myself out of everything except.
Dude, we're so far removed, right? I can't answer too many questions, and I love it. It serves me well. When a client asks me a question, I said, you know what? I don't even do my own taxes.
So I talked to somebody this morning in the firm, and he said, "Oh yeah, I just handed that off to Julie." I go, "We have a Julie?" Mm-hmm. He goes, "Yeah, I think she's new." I'm like, "I probably should know this."
Well, and that's like when you're out of that process and you know it's working, you've built something that's going to last, right?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And I've said this on the podcast here before, but when I gave up the managing partner role 5 years ago and my partner took it over, he is so much better at that process end of things and coordinate everything internally. And, we have the marketing team now, and we have the, specific 179D team and the 45L team and the R&D team and the ERC team. They're all different. We all get together, communally on whatever, but there are specific people for specific jobs, and the whole, here's our, mission going forward. So that's not my thing. I'm not good at it. I'm good at this. I'm good at going out and educating CPAs, and that's where I have fun.
Are you the visionary?
Visionary. I think I'm.
It's an EOS term.
I think I'm very good. So I haven't done this. So there's this. What's this? There's this one thing you do where you find your top 5 traits that make you who you are. I can't think of what it's called.
Genius? Is it the Padgett Lencioni thing?
Yeah, the people in the firm say you need to do this, so I need to do it. For visionary,
it could be like the I don't know. There's visionary, integrator, and EOS, but there's a lot of different personalities.
Right. I'm sure it's something like that.
Yeah.
My thing is, I can come up with the idea. I can see where we're supposed to go. I just can't take us there. I can facilitate the
take it 10% of the way there.
I can't do the whole, let's put all the processes in place to get us there.
So you're the visionary, and you described your managing partner as the integrator. That's kind of how it is at our firm. And every visionary needs an integrator, and every integrator needs a visionary. Because a visionary that can do it all is Josh Lance.
Yeah.
He's an integrator and visionary, and that's hard to come by. That's a unicorn. That's a unique CPA right there.
There you go. Well, he was on one of the first probably 6 shows. We go back. We started with Josh. We're ending with Josh. The one last thing then before, if anybody does want to find out more about you or reach out to you or find the podcast, or where do they look?
I need more followers on Twitter. I put this in the beginning too. I got to follow me on Twitter. I'd never cared about that until like now that I see that I have a very sorry following on Twitter.
I'm the same way.
Scott Scarano on Twitter. Yeah. And our podcast is Sons of CPAs. Find it on Apple, Spotify, any of those others. And then if you like it, leave us a review too. They love that stuff. If you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, I had fun.
Enjoyed it.
We went about 500 different directions.
I was nervous, but you've made me feel comfortable. I'm usually not on this side of the mic.
Yeah.
I'm on the other side of the mic.
I've gotten used to being on that side lately.
And I'm not high either.
So look at you. You've got through this all on your own. I appreciate you being on this. So
that Lil Wayne's help. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you for joining us today, and you can find all the links and show notes for today's episode, as well as more about Tri-Merit at theuniquecpa.com. Remember to subscribe and join us for our next episode where we'll be going beyond compliance into forging new pathways of delivering value to clients, diversifying your revenue streams, and leading-edge management techniques and styles.
This has been a production of Twin Flame Studios.